Hello viewers, artists, and all in between, to another stream of the Art Lounge Alley. I'm your host, and this is going to be coloring comics. I'm going to be using India inks to color beautiful work done by John Buscema. It's a study, it's me visually reading his work, getting involved in the story, getting involved in the characters, bringing them to life, bringing his beautiful work to life once again. Yeah, so that's going to be going on for the rest of the stream, for the rest of the night. And I am currently, this is the progress of drawing comics. I'm going to have to go back a couple of pages, and you guys can get a better idea of why things are going in the direction that they're going in drawing comics. So this is just a recap. Conan is out to find a cult leader. He has a bone to pick with him, so he figured out how to infiltrate the meeting, disguised himself as one of the members here, and this is actually a panel that I have to revisit and redraw. He presents the guards with the secret emblem, I guess, to get in, and he listens in on what's going on. And that right there is the cult leader. So this is where we're going to continue. I have this little jar. It's acquiring some paint at the bottom, which looks kind of gross, but I assure you it is paint. And for those of you who are new, I'm actually going to be really taking it back to like traditional stuff, because originally I was inking things using this brush pen that I'm going to show you guys. Now it's really important for those of you who are doing it as well to get a jar with a lid, because if you got pets, oh man, all your comics, all your work and other stuff is going to get wet. You know, they knock it down, or if one day you're just a little clumsy and you elbow it and then it spills all over your work or your references, your comics, all that stuff, it's going to be a disaster. So make sure you get yourself a jar with lid for cleaning out your brush. So yeah, this was the thing that I was using. Now this is great if you are, let's say if you're doing like a visual demonstration. Let's say you're not at your desk, you know, you're just drawing somewhere. This is good for that because the ink is in there. You don't have to dip it into anything. You don't have to hold anything to dip into, but it dries out. Refilling it is a bit of a hassle. It's not very clear as how to go about it. There are better brush pens out there that make it easier for you to refill, but I found this one to be kind of tedious. Like you have to open it up, really clean it. You know, you really have to do some thorough work because it dries up. You know, and I'm using India ink to refill it. I'm using this stuff right here. Oh, this is like the old one. But yeah, this is Bombay Black India ink. I'm using this stuff, and it dries out, which is great. It really does play an important role in the process, because if you, let's say, make a mistake, it dries out quickly, and you could white it out quickly. So there's definitely a benefit to it, but the downside is if you're using something like this, it dries inside and it kind of clogs up the area where the ink flows down to the bristles. So that's it's a pain in the ass to do it. So I'm really trying to revert back to just how they used to do it traditionally. You know, I recently saw, this is something I talked about before, I saw John Buscema doing the full drawing from sketch all the way to inking, and he was just using a brush, you know, just a simple brush, and he was dipping it in black ink, and he was able to get like even the most finest details, like these fine lines. He was able to just quickly, I didn't even take time, like that's how well he he wielded his tools. So I'm challenging myself to get to that place, to get to a place where I'm very comfortable using these tools. And it's something so simple. You just dip it into the ink and then you can wash this brush. So anyways, with that said, I'm going to start filling in these files. Yeah, I gotta tell you, it's such a joy to be able to unplug, to not look at the screen. As much as I still do enjoy digital, and I plan to actually improve my digital situation, there's a part of me that wants to and doesn't, because using the Wacom tablet, it's something I mentioned before. The one that I have, it doesn't have a screen on it. So you're staring at the screen and you're not able to see the brush strokes that you're making. You could see them on the screen, but because there is that disconnect between your hand motion and what you see on the screen, it's just this kind of like intuitive process where you're really depending on your hand-eye coordination in a different way. You know, your brain is telling your hand to draw a line that you want a certain way, but you're not able to look at your hand to do it. Whereas if you're doing it traditionally, if you're just doing it like this, that there's like an immediate connection. So that bit of disconnection, that little bit of, I'm going to say lag, right? That's a more technical term, can be a bit frustrating. But I think now that I've been really getting back into it and I've been doing it more and more, I'm getting more comfortable with it, and I think it also improves your hand-eye coordination. It improves your relationship between, you know, your mind basically and your hand, because once again, you're not really looking at it, but your hand has to listen to what your mind is telling it to do. So that visual aid in some way can be hindering, but in other ways it could actually really improve your work. So I'm like, do I really need it? You know, do I really need to get a one with the screen on it? Part of me does, part of me doesn't. I'm still debating on it. I think at some point I'm going to cave in and get it, just so that I could focus more on drawing and just get good at it that way. You know, I think I'm going to focus less on time. You know, focus less on like, oh, I need to make this right brush stroke, and then deleting it and then doing it again, like you guys might have seen me do. But it's probably going to be sometime in the future. It's not anytime soon. The goal is to just completely do things traditionally, to get really, really fast and really good at traditional work, so that when I upload the image, it's going to be just to make it look good. And that's pretty much it. To like put in the final touches, basically. Oh damn, I forgot. I need green. I'm definitely going to need lots of green. It's funny, now that I'm looking at the green here, I could see where the appeal came for my project that I recently completed. If you guys haven't seen it, you guys can go back to previous episodes by going to the video section and Twitch channel and filtering it based on collection, which opens up folders for you, and you can go back and view previous streams through there. But in that stream, in the previous project stream, I show you guys the final piece. I finished it up over the weekend. And the sky, I noticed, has a very similar color scheme as the walls here. It's like that kind of green yellow. Oh, this is really green. Yeah, when it comes to India ink, it's very potent. Like, the colors are so potent that you have to be very careful when dipping your brush in there. How does that look? Too green. Way too green. Way too green. See, it's kind of closer, but still. No dice. Maybe add a little bit of brown and see what that does. Yeah, surprisingly, that kind of gets closer. Now you guys are going to see the amazing part about India inks. So I don't like these colors, the ones that I started out with. And you guys are going to witness what the major benefit of working with India inks is in just a few minutes. Now, to be honest, I don't really mind the color variation that happens from all this mixing. I think it adds more character to the panel. But that's not the goal here. The goal is to draw it exactly as I see it. Now, that's something I could do with my personal projects. Things that I'm working on from my imagination. It's always fun to play around with colors there. And this is a really good example. You know, this is what I was talking about when it came to like oil painting and really admiring oil painters. How quick they get at mixing colors. They could just look at a color that they need and instantly be able to mix the right colors to get it. I mean, also, I'm taking on that sort of approach as opposed to just like pre-mixing. You know, if you guys go back to the very first episode of Coloring Comics, you guys will get a better idea of how they used to do it back in the day, where the colorists would basically pre-mix the vials and they would send like a formula basically to the mass production studio, where like people who manually would sit down and like color the comic books, they would have like an idea of like how to mix the colors quickly, so that way they don't spend too much time figuring it out. So like for example, in order to get like this green, they would say like 25% white, 25% brown, 40% yellow, and there will be very technical terms. You guys can check that out. That's also available by going to the video section in Twitch, filtering it on collection, and you will see folders. You will see a folder for coloring comics. You'll see a folder for special streams, where it's available in both, actually. So yeah, and there you guys will see a more in-depth and more accurate description of like what that process was. But basically they would send in these codes, and people would sit down and they would mix the vials. Like they would have like empty vials, and they would just follow the description. They'll add 25, like 2 drops, and it'll be very specific too. Like 25% would be 2 drops or 3 drops or whatever. I don't remember the exact number. And then they would shake it up, and they would just have this color. They could just dip into it and start coloring. And I think what I'm doing right now, well, what I am doing right now, is developing an eye for these colors, so that I can actually just know, okay, it's exactly this amount to get this, and just mix it quickly. Alright, so what I was talking about before, this is the benefit of working with India inks. They dry so quickly, and they add like this protective layer, so you could just cover it up. Like, you remember how green that was, and look at that. In just a few minutes I was able to just cover it up completely. I don't have to go back over and over and over again to cover it. It's that dry in such a short period of time. Whereas if you guys have been present throughout all the coloring comics streams, you can remember back to when I was working with watercolor and how delicate that stage was. Like, I had to really, I mean, benefit was that I had to learn quickly. Like, I had to learn how to mix the color and remember them well, so that I don't keep going over the same area over and over again with water. What that does is it eventually wears out the paper. Nope. See? The other side, it's totally fine. Yeah, it would wear out the paper, and it would bleed through to the other side of the page. Whereas with India inks, since they dry out quickly, as I mentioned, it creates this protective layer, and I can actually go back and add more color or add more pigment to it, and it's totally fine. So it's more forgiving for sure because of that, which I didn't really think about. I thought, oh, fast drying, that means I can't play around with the colors as much. Now I realize it's really beneficial. It actually speeds up the process. Instead of like playing around and muddying up the color and hoping eventually to get the right color, I let it dry and I put the right color on immediately. Big perk. Alright, I'm gonna leave that alone for now. And as you guys could see, like, there's some line color variation. There's like some brown, there's some green mixed in. It's not just a solid color, which I really do enjoy. I like that texture sort of to it. And it works so well with what I'm coloring. You know, giving the bricks more age. Whereas if I had it already mixed, pre-mixed, you know, it would be a solid color and I could just easily go to it. The downside is not much of a downside, because again, it still helps me to learn. They quickly dry out in the mixing section of my palette. So within a few minutes, that color that I mixed is already inaccessible. Like it dried. So I have to remix the colors. But as I mentioned, that helps me actually get better and better at achieving it. Nope, too green. Too green, and this is too white. This is more accurate. Kind of. Needs a little brown. Speaking of brown, I just saw in the news that Steve Jobs' brown, like, sandals, I want to say there's like a specific moccasins or something. I don't think it's moccasins. I think it's something else. But his sandals, used sandals, sold for $200,000. $200,000 for used sandals. Like, I wonder what people do with that. You know, this is coming, it's not coming from some, well, who knows, but, you know, like, what are they doing with those sandals? Like, are they putting it in a glass case, and then when people come over, they're like, yeah, these are Steve Jobs' sandals that he wore. I don't know. It's kind of funny. Would you be impressed by that? Like, if you came over somebody's house and they're like, yeah, I just spent $200,000 on these sandals, and it's like in a glass container, and it's like Steve Jobs's sandals. So like his sweaty feet were in there. I don't know, it's weird. Kind of reminds me of that time where Britney Spears' gum was sold for like a lot of money too, which, how do you even confirm that? Like, does it come with some sort of DNA test or something? And what do you do with that? You know, does that really impress the guests? And like, if it's not about the guests, then what is it about? Like, do you just sit there and look at the gum all day, or? That $200 and like take a trip somewhere, man. Get like some sort of like boat cruise or something. You need to chill out. $200,000 for sandals, used sandals. It sounds like a Craigslist thing. You know, this is something that you would hear or come across on Craigslist. Now, if it's like Jimi Hendrix's guitar, that's something else. You know, I think that's cool. It's an instrument and it has to do with like beautiful, soulful music. So that's a really cool investment. I'm most likely going to come back and redo these colors, I think. I mean, it's already, look at that, it's already dry and I could come back and redo it. Cool. Very cool. Should be utilizing this right here. This is like a bottle of water. Just squeeze it into a little palette section and clean up the brush, man. Oh no. Oh, totally forgot that it's still wet. But look at that, it's already dried on my skin. Cool stuff. Gonna clean up the brush. Which is probably why I'm getting such muddy colors. Not probably, it definitely is the reason why I'm getting muddy colors. Moving on to these cult leaders and their robes. Now, the colors are a little less potent because I still have some like water on the brush. And this is where the rag comes in. And I really try to clean it up. And that was the other thing with the brush pen that I was showing you guys earlier, is that even after I wash it, it just retains a lot of water. Even after I wash it and after I like squeeze it out as much as possible, it still retains a lot of water, and that it dilutes the colors and it also adds more water to the paper, which sucks. It damages the paper more. What you're seeing right now, that's pure pigment. It's not mixed with anything. It just mixed the colors together, white and purple basically. So it's fully potent. It has this like buttery sort of feel to it, which I like. This is what it's all about. When it comes to traditional mediums, you really start to get the feel for the medium itself that you're using. And it's not just about colors and the lines. It becomes very much about like the liquid form, the brush, how it feels, the paper that you're using. It brings out this totally new reality to the experience. Whereas digital doesn't do that. Digital, the benefit of digital is that it just allows you to focus on the subject, whatever it is that you're doing. You have less things to think about as you're trying to develop it. So there's like plus and minus for everything. Positive and negative to everything. I am adding a little bit of water here, and that also is a different feel once there's this protective layer. The surface becomes a lot more slick since the India inks dry out, and it gives that like extra coat. So now like using water isn't as bad. It's not going directly on the paper, it's going on top of what you already did. And this is similar to gesso. This is something that I used to use when I was doing oil painting. I would just add this like extra protective layer on top of the canvas because it feels differently. If you're just drawing or painting rather straight on canvas, without any sort of like medium on top of it, it's like trying to draw on cloth. If you've ever tried to paint anything, let's say on like your hat or a jacket or anything like that, your book bag, you'll know what I'm talking about. But if you add gesso on top of it, it creates this smooth surface. It's a process because you have to add it. You have to make sure that you do it in a way where it's very smooth. You have to do a couple of layers. Some people don't do a couple of layers. They only do like one coat and that's it. And that actually helps also to preserve the luminosity of colors, because with oils, since it is oil, it absorbs into the canvas. So to prevent that, you just do this light coat and it gets absorbed into that instead of like actual material. And that has a different effect. It's a different effect visually, and it's also a different effect when it comes to you painting. So this is basically right now what you guys are witnessing me do. This is like the gesso period. For this guy, for the other guy. I'm gonna let it dry and then go over with a more accurate color. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of like anticipating getting back into like inking stuff, trying to use this brush instead. It's kind of like the stages that I go through when it comes to drawing, when it comes to painting. When it comes to drawing, there's like 3 stages. The beginning, which is like sketching out the idea, getting it together, getting the composition together, making sure it's accurate and that sort of thing. That's a stage of its own. Then the next stage is the inking stage, and then after that it's the coloring stage. So each time I finish with one stage and move on to the next, I start to miss the previous stage to it. And then the final stage where I'm like beautifying images, I'm like, oh, it was so cool to just like color the stuff, or it was so cool to just sketch out. Being in that sketching state, you know, that's a different feeling than just like zooming in and like coloring this section and that section and really taking your time with everything. So each of those stages have their fun moments. It's kind of cool to explore all that, and that's kind of the benefit, I think, of like comics. You know, you're going from panel to panel. Like, I'm working on this panel, and the next panel I get to do it again. You know, I get to go through all those stages again. Or the next page, I get to go through that stage all over again. It's not as final as when it comes to, like, let's say oil painting, where you're working on one piece, one canvas, and it could go on for like months, you know, depending on how far you want to take it. I was reading a little bit about catching up on like Lucian Freud, which he's like the nephew of Sigmund Freud, the psychologist. Lucian Freud is a painter. In case you guys missed it, I did a bit of a short introduction. It wasn't really meant to be a special stream or anything of that sort. He just kind of like popped up in conversation about art. But you guys can check that out also. That's also in the previous streams, and the cover for the stream where he's there in is pretty obvious. Like, you'll know which one it is. But yeah, in that book they were talking about how he spent, like, Francis Bacon, which is another painter, his contemporary, and how they were friends from a young age. And they were talking about Lucian Freud's early paintings, and how one of them was, the subject was Francis Bacon, and how they pretty much spent time with each other for months because of that. You know, he had to sit in for this painting that he was doing. So yeah, you could be doing one piece for that long, whereas with comics, you know, you got to move quick. You got to move to the next panel, next page. And with that comes the opportunity to revisit all those stages. You know, that's what's cool about it. I get to go back to sketching, go back to like inking and experiencing that again. But as I mentioned, I enjoy all of them. Like, I enjoy comics, I enjoy painting. It's one of the reasons why this new project that I'm currently working on is a continuation. It's a painting. For those of you who are just tuning in for the very first time, it's a painting that I was working on a while back. This is years ago, and I just kind of forgot about it. And within these past few, I'm going to say months of like organizing my previous work and just kind of seeing, you know, what has developed over the years, I came across it and I was like, oh, that's right. I was supposed to do this. Like, I wanted to do a master study of, I hate using that word. I wanted to do a study of an amazing, skilled painter named Jacques-Louis David, French painter. And it is a painting of Socrates. It's called The Death of Socrates. It's something that, it's one of my favorite paintings. I absolutely love it. I love the story, the history to it, the idea behind it, everything. The painting itself is amazing. So yeah, I found it and I was like, oh, I should really finish it or start on it again. So I might not be doing it for too long. You know, I might actually try to finish it up on my own time because I do want to stream more work from imagination, more stuff that is personally mine as opposed to somebody else's or a study of somebody else's. So I might do this for like maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, because the week is already coming to an end. It's wild. Tomorrow's Thursday. So yeah. And you guys can check that out and see what it's about, where the progress is tomorrow. I'm going to be streaming figure drawing basics at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then the project stream at 9 p.m. And then Gil Elfgren, the special intro, is going to be this Friday. So make sure you tune back in if you can't make it tomorrow for Friday to see the rest of Norman Rockwell's work. Pretty sure I should be able to pretty much cover all of the rest of, I'm going to say, Norman Rockwell, and move on to the next influence of Gil Elfgren on Friday. I feel like there's like a hint of red here. Have to squeeze some white. Yeah, I thought so. There's like a little bit of red there. And I'm probably going to have to come back and redefine these little details, because right now they look a little wonky. They look like I'm really trying to avoid them, and it gives this like hard outline around them. So I might be doing inking sooner than I think. But going back to Lucian Freud, you know, it's a book that I found at a thrift store, and it was pretty cheap actually. Like I just picked it up and I was like, oh, what is this? And what I like about it is that it also comes with these stories, you know, these stories that you can't really find. I mean, you could find online, but it's just not the same. You know, it's, you got to piece things together. You got to combine it with the images and so on and so forth. So it's cool just to have that book and be able to read the story behind the paintings and observe the paintings. And it's just been my favorite thing to do now. Like I got myself that light that goes around the neck, and that transformed my reading completely. Like I just sit on my couch now and I get enough light to actually check out these books. And I'm really working on just staying away from social media as much, you know, really making it once in a while sort of thing, and just focusing more on like these books and reading and drawing more. Because the really addictive thing about it, especially if you have like a bunch of things that you're subscribed to, is that it's always gonna like bring more and more material. You know, kind of like appeals to like FOMO. You know, fear of missing out. Like you're just like, oh, what's next? And maybe there's something else that's new, and maybe there's like another thing that's cool that's around the corner, and it's just like. That's what like just doom scrolling kind of, I'm gonna say, is for me. It's just always thinking that there's something more and more around the corner. And that's what the appeal, I mean, that's how they get you, right? Like that's how they net you in. And before you know it, the free time that you have for yourself was just wasted on that. Like you didn't accomplish anything, you didn't learn anything. You know, you didn't develop anything. You didn't get better at anything. You just might have gotten some bit of information and some entertainment. And that's it. You know, has it actually improved the trajectory of your life and what you're going to do with it? Not really. You know, just made you happy for an hour. And that's pretty much it. So I'd rather sit and read interesting books. Learn some stuff about art, get to see some more beautiful art. Improve in drawing. That's what I'd rather do with my time. I don't want to get caught into this like never-ending scrolling of social media. And I've been keeping up with my my goal, which is to wake up early in the morning. Well, when I wake up in the morning, to look at books, like to look at John Buscema's work. Like I recently acquired, this is what I was talking about before. I acquired John Buscema's sketchbook. A beautiful collection, absolutely amazing, worth every penny. If you guys can get your hands on it, if you could buy it. If you're looking for a cool book to get inspired by, get yourself John Buscema's sketchbook. It's absolutely affordable. There's another great book. There's multiple actually. And there's another one that is John Buscema, the Michelangelo of comics. That's also a good one, but that one's a bit pricey. But if you can get your hands on it, it is incredible. So much work there, so much to read about as well. They really get you in on what goes on, what happened in history, and interviews, and the people that he talked to, and all sorts of stuff. It's a really cool book. I'm having a blast with it. I'm taking my time. I kind of don't want to finish it. You know, I don't want to like read it and then just be done with it. But that's never the case. This is something that happens to me frequently with books. I always pick it up later again to just like see some stuff and really study, especially if it's like dealing with comics or art or illustration. Like I pick them up over and over and over again, even after I read them. That's the cool thing about having those books too. They're always there to read. And with that said, everybody, and this is something I'm probably going to be doing after this, I am going to have to call it a night. It was a blast. I had a great time today, actually. I was thrilled that I was able to sneak in that special intro at the very beginning. So if you guys missed that out, you can always catch that after the stream. I'm going to put it up. I'm going to put up the link for the artist and the original artist as well. And that way you guys can get more familiar with it. So I'm excited for that as well. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was a pleasure. And I will see you tomorrow, same time and place, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here at the Art Lounge Alley. If you you guys enjoy this content, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button. And I'll see you tomorrow.